Welcome to Second Chapter Stories, where we share powerful journeys of ordinary people who found the courage to begin again. These are stories of resilience, reinvention, and hope. Stories that remind us that even after life's darkest moments, a new chapter can still begin. Today's story is about a woman who lost the person she thought she would grow old with and had to find a way to rebuild her life from the ground up. Let's begin. At 52, Evelyn owned a thriving catering business that employed 8 people. Her calendar was booked months in advance. Her business was respected, and her future looked brighter than she ever imagined. What few people knew was that 5 years earlier, she had been sitting at her kitchen table, staring at unpaid bills, wondering how she would survive. Her husband had died unexpectedly, and everything had changed. This is her story. At 47, Evelyn thought she knew how the rest of her life would unfold. She and her husband had built a simple but comfortable life together. They weren't wealthy, but they were content. They had plans for retirement, plans for travel, plans for the years ahead. Then one ordinary morning, everything changed. Her husband suffered a sudden medical emergency. By the end of the week, he was gone. The grief was overwhelming. For weeks, Evelyn moved through her days in a haze. She struggled to sleep. She struggled to eat. Some mornings, she struggled to find a reason to get out of bed. But grief wasn't the only challenge she faced. As the weeks passed, she discovered something she hadn't fully understood. Much of their financial stability had depended on her husband. Without his income, the future suddenly looked uncertain. Bills piled up, savings dwindled, and fear began to creep into every corner of her life. Friends encouraged her, family supported her. But at night, when she was alone, the questions felt relentless. How will I survive? How will I support myself? Am I too old to start over? For months, Evelyn focused on getting through one day at a time. Then, one afternoon, while preparing food for a family gathering, a relative made an observation. "You should be selling this food." Evelyn laughed. The idea seemed ridiculous. She had always enjoyed cooking, but turning it into a business? That felt impossible. Still, the comment stayed with her. A few weeks later, she accepted a small catering request from a friend. Then another, then another. The jobs were small. The income was modest. But each event gave her something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. For the first time since her husband's passing, she could see a path forward. Not a perfect path, not a guaranteed path, but a path. She began learning about business. She watched videos, read articles, asked questions, made mistakes, lots of mistakes. There were events where she underpriced her services, events where things went wrong, days when she questioned whether she was capable of building anything on her own. But she kept going. One client became 3, 3 became 10, 10 became dozens. Slowly, the small idea that had started in her kitchen began to grow. By the time Evelyn turned 52, she had built a catering company that supported not only herself but several employees. The woman who once feared she wouldn't survive had created a future she never expected. Not because life had become easy, but because she had refused to stop moving forward. Evelyn's story reminds us that resilience doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes resilience is simply showing up one more day, taking one more step, trying one more time. When we experience loss, it can feel as though life has ended. But often, what has ended is only one chapter. The next chapter may look different from the one we planned, different from the one we wanted, yet it can still contain purpose, joy, and hope. Evelyn didn't choose the circumstances that changed her life, but she chose how she would respond to them. And that choice changed everything. Thank you for listening to this episode of Second Chapter Stories. If this story touched you, please subscribe for more stories of courage, reinvention, and new beginnings. And tell us in the comments, what is one challenge you faced that taught you how strong you really are? Your story may encourage someone who is struggling today. Until next time, remember, the chapter you never wanted to write may become the chapter that reveals your greatest strength.